and it has been more than 4 hours. And let's take a look at what our starter is like. Bring it over here. Uncover it. You can see how it's nice and foamy, and that's exactly how you want it. Exactly. Now, the one thing you will have to do, if you let this sit for more than a day, it is going to get very watery underneath. You can see here it's just got some water below, but you're going to want to mix that really well. Just incorporate all that goodness together. It has had time to ferment and build a good structure in there. And this is going to aid in your bread rising higher. Since we're using a bit more whole wheat flour in the starter, it is a whole wheat bread. We are using a bread flour in this. So, on to the rest of it. We're going to use some old-fashioned rolled oats, 2 cups, 1/4 cup of ground flaxseed. This is 4½ cups of King Arthur bread flour. We're going to use 4 teaspoons of the SAF instant yeast, 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. If you use table salt, use 1 teaspoon. This is 6 tablespoons of the demerara sugar, of the same type of sugar that we used when we made the starter. We're also going to use 1/2 cup of water, give or take another 1/2 cup depending on the weather that day. It's kind of humid today, so I don't expect to need more than that. And 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. In the alternative, you can use 4 tablespoons of softened butter. I find I like the consistency of the bread better using the vegetable oil. And this is organic safflower oil, and it is not canola oil. And Rick's giving me a shot of my peppers over there. Okay, so all we do now is we're going to put the oats and the sugar and the salt and the yeast. I'm going to dump in my oil and my water. And I'm going to put it over here in the mixer. And I'm going to run and get my dough hook. And then what I'm going to do is, since I have previously measured this flour, I'm going to go ahead and just scoop out a cup, and you know what I eyeball is 1/2 cup. We'll turn on the mixer, and we're going to let this mix well, and then we're going to start adding additional flour as we need it. And then I'm going to show you what it's supposed to look like and how long you're supposed to knead it in the machine. Now, if you do this by hand, you need to do this in a bowl with a wooden spoon, or a spoon, until it is well combined, and then you would add enough flour until it became one solid mass. Then you would turn it out onto your board, and you would knead it for 10 to 15 minutes until you built up all that good gluten before you let it sit and rise. It is extremely easier if you use the mixer. If you have a heavy-duty mixer with a dough hook, I highly recommend that that's the way you go with this bread. Or if you have a bread machine, you could do it that way, but you're going to have to make the starter separately and then add it to the bread machine with the other dry ingredients. And set your timer for 7 minutes. You want this dough in the mixer kneading for 7 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to start it to go. In 7 minutes, we'll come back and I'll show you what the dough looks like before it's supposed to stop. Oh, I forgot. We forgot to add in our flaxseed. So let that go in there. And this adds a wonderful texture and as well as an excellent flavor to this dough. And don't worry, if you forgot, just toss it in there. Bread dough is very forgiving. You can do a lot of fixing if you forgot to do something with bread dough. So don't worry, by the time we come back, all that flaxseed's going to be mixed in there and our dough's going to be ready to rise. Okay. Our kneading time is over. And now I'm going to just release this. There we go. See, this is exactly how you want it. The bread dough is really separating itself from the hook. And get your hook out of there. Got that missing. Make sure your hands are dry also. The one thing I will say is I'm just gonna go ahead and take this out of the bowl. This is exactly how we want it. I want you to just kind of turn it into itself on the bottom. You see how I'm grabbing it? I'm just kind of sticking it into itself at the bottom. You're going to tuck it in. You're going to make a nice round mass. And I'm going to set this for here for just a second. I'm going to get my cooking spray. Now you can see how clean that bowl is. Now it's not completely clean, but you can see where the majority of that ingredients have pulled away from the side of the bowl and were incorporated into that dough. I'm going to put the dough back into this bowl to rise. I'm just going to spray this with the cooking spray. I'm going to take this. This is the side we turned it into itself on. I'm going to stick that right in the bowl. And I'm going to put some plastic wrap on here again. And I think I threw away my other piece. Just like that. This is the end of the roll, so it's kind of weird. I'm going to put this on, and this is just my thing. I always cover my bowl. It's very warm in my kitchen today. I've been doing some apple butter and some canning and some bread baking, and I may put a stew in the crock pot. So, you know, it's warm in my kitchen, but it's 69 degrees outside, so it is kind of a nice cool day. I'm just going to stick this on the back of my stove just like that. I'm going to come back when it's double in size. Because I used the gold instant yeast, it could take 45 minutes to an hour for this to rise. If you use the regular instant yeast, it's going to take an hour to an hour and a half to rise, depending on where you are. Now, if you are at a higher altitude, it may take 30 minutes to rise. So you should really refer to any bread making guides that you have available to you. I do suggest that you go to kingarthurflour.com because it is a font of bread baking information. So we're going to wait in about 45 minutes to an hour. We're going to come back after the first rise is done, and then we're going to pan these up and get them ready for their second rise. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're back, and this rose for a little over an hour. When you use that the gold yeast, it really does what it says. So a lot of times you'll see people say punch down the dough, but I don't like to do that. You will just turn it out onto your board and let it gently deflate and get all those air pockets out of there. And then we're going to divide this in two, so that the thing I like to do is kind of find a halfway point and just kind of pinch it so that it comes apart like that. And you'll have two pieces that are essentially the same size. Now, I also don't like to manipulate the dough too much. I like to kind of even it out a bit like this. I'll set that there. Kind of turn it under into itself so that you make a nice uniform size loaf. And when you're going to put this in the pan, you're going to kind of flatten it out anyway. That way it's going to come out really nice. So let me grab the pans over here. I have sprayed these with the cooking oil spray, and I'm just going to set this in the pan just like this, and I'm just going to flatten it. Same with this one. And this is going to make a nicely shaped loaf when it rises. And then when it bakes up, it's going to be beautiful. You're going to love this. Okay, so I have this piece of plastic. I'm just going to put this over both of them because it's big enough to do that. And I'm going to cover them with a towel again. And I'm going to move them. I'm just going to set them over here. in about 30 minutes I'm going to come back, and at the same time I'm going to preheat my oven to 350. And then when these come out, when these are finished rising, this will be their second rise for their shaping. Then we'll go ahead and we'll put them in the oven. Put your rack, your top rack, in the middle of the oven. That way, when you're ready to put your bread loaves in the oven, it's in the right position. So, in 30 minutes, I'll be back and you'll see what they look like after their second rise. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes and it is time for these to go in the oven. You just want to gently remove any cloth you may have on the top, as well as the plastic wrap. And our oven is nicely preheated because it's been heating ever since we put the dough in for the second rising. Alright, it's been 15 minutes and our bread has been baking. And I've just taken a lace of aluminum foil that's long enough to go ahead and go over, and sometimes it's a little long, so it's hard to get it in there because of the air circulation. You just want to put it in there and then close it as fast as you can. And that's it. And we're going to bake it for another 20 minutes. When it's time to bring it out, I'm going to share it with you and show you what it looks like. So I'll be back in 20 minutes. Okay, 20 minutes is up. Let's remove that foil. And let's take these out of the oven. Look at that. Are those not beautiful? And that's just how they should look. Just like that. I'm going to let them sit in the pan for just a second. And then take a dish towel, kind of fold it up like this. And I like to turn it on its side just for a minute. Alright, now, when you do this, it should feel hollow inside. And that's just how it feels. Now, because I have somewhat asbestos fingers, we're going to flip those over. Get yourself some butter. I have a half a stick right here in my fridge. We're going to peel it back a little. And we're going to do this. If you feel more comfortable using olive oil or vegetable oil, please go right ahead. I find that the whole organic butter does wonders. It keeps the crust soft for the week. If you like a crunchy crust on your bread, please don't do this. We like a soft crust on our loaf, so we cover the top like this. You can brush it with oil. You can spray it with vegetable oil spray. Or you can do this with the butter. Like that. This is great for sandwiches, anything, grilled cheese, whatever. And I also would like to let you know that it's easy to slice with a knife, but it's even easier to slice with an electric knife. So if you have one of those electric knives and you only use it at Thanksgiving, get it out of the cupboard, get out the bread blade, and slice away. One loaf of this bread should yield 16 slices of sandwich bread. It also makes great French toast, and like I said, at the end of the week, if you plan on making this weekly, whatever you have left of the end, go ahead and grind it up in the food processor, put it in a Ziploc in your freezer, and you'll always have fresh breadcrumb available. You never have to buy that garbage in the grocery store again. So, there it is, my weekly loaf. I hope you try it, and I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, I'll see ya.